All right, so yesterday Tesla announced new pricing for their lowest trim Model Y. Now they start at $43,990 for the rear-wheel drive spec on a standard range battery, which will get you about 260 miles of range, 135 miles per hour top speed, and 6.6 0 to 60 acceleration. Now, what's interesting about this new price is that with the EV federal tax credit that's available in the US of $7,500, this gets the Model Y pricing all the way down to $36,490. Now, if we compare this to pricing from back in February 2021, Tesla had a rear-wheel drive spec that started at $39,900, but this was before the EV tax credit was available to Teslas. What's also crazy to think about is that February of 2021 was over 2 years ago. And with inflation, it's crazy that's already been 2 years. Ugh. With inflation, if you take into account all the stuff that happened during COVID, that $39,000 price is much closer to $44,400-ish, which now means that with this new pricing for the rear-wheel drive and the federal tax credit, Tesla now has the cheapest Model Y ever built available for sale. And so some of the things that have changed between that model and this model back in February 2021 when they first had this model available is that the car now has 16 miles more range. It has improved fit and finish because of all the tweaks that Tesla has done to the car since that time. Better ride quality with better suspension, better feel. It has the new self-driving computer, the Hardware 4, which will essentially future-proof people if they're concerned about that, even though Tesla has said Hardware 3 will be capable of self-driving in the future. But two of the downsides is that it has about a 1.3 second slower 0 to 60, and the charging rate is capped at 170 kilowatts instead of 250, probably due to the LFP, which is a iron-based chemistry in the battery, which allows you to charge to 100% every day, but it also doesn't have as much power versus the usual chemistry that Tesla has been using. But the nice thing about LFP is that it's going to allow Tesla to get to cheaper models over time as well. Now, let's take this car and put it against all the competitors out there that Tesla has in the US market. What I've done is I've picked EV SUVs under $50,000 MSRP. I pitted the Model Y against all the entry trims for these models. So basically the cheapest one available for each one of these car makers. They're all going to be rear-wheel drive with the exception of the Nissan Ariya. I think it's Ariya. I've included the EV tax credit in the net price for each one of these models as long as the car qualifies for either the full credit or the partial credit, and you'll see a little asterisk next to the pricing. And so the 5 competitors I've picked are the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Volkswagen ID4, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, and the Nissan Ariya. For electric vehicles, there's very specific variables you want to look for when you're purchasing a car. And so the ones that I've picked out that I think are the most important, and I think a lot of EV owners would agree, let me know if that's the case in the comment section below, are of course price, but then you also have the range, how big the battery is, 0 to 60 performance, so you get that EV torque at the beginning there, which is super nice. A front trunk, if it has one or not, which is really a signal of really efficient packaging and that they're maximizing the space of the EV plus additional storage up front. The max charging rate, which is going to allow the battery to charge up as quickly as possible when you're going around the country and traveling and road tripping. Cargo capacity, which again is a huge benefit of EVs because they're packaged a lot better because you don't have an engine up front and a transmission and all this other stuff taking up space in the car. And then lastly, bang for your buck, which is going to be the comparison of the net price of the car versus how many miles the electric vehicle gets. Price and range are by far the 2 biggest variables that people look for in EVs. And so I think it's very smart to put those 2 next to each other to see what kind of bang for your buck you get. And so let's go ahead and start with the comparisons. For range, here are the range figures for every single one of the models. Tesla's Model Y has 260 miles, the ID4 from Volkswagen 209, Ford 250, Hyundai 220, Kia 232, and the Nissan 216. What I'll do moving forward is for any numbers where the car has best in class, let's say, they'll be highlighted as green, and then the ones that are worst in class, I'll highlight in red in case that specific measure is very important to you when you're making a decision. So in this case, Tesla Model Y has the best range out of all these cars, all its competition, with the Ford Mustang Mach-E not that far behind. Now, if we move on to 0 to 60 times, in this case, the Tesla has a 6.6 0 to 60 versus the ID4 7.8, which is worst in class. But Ford Mustang Mach-E in this case has the best in class for all entry trims at least at 6.30 to 60, Hyundai Ioniq 5 at 7, and then the Kia EV6 and the Nissan Ariya at 7.2. Now, if you're enjoying the content so far, throw me a like, and if you want to support the channel, super easy, just click subscribe. Thank you so much. Okay, always weird asking somebody to do something when you're looking at a camera. I'm never going to get used to it. For the Frunk, which again is this front trunk area, which is unique to electric vehicles, the two cars that really have a usable front trunk are the Tesla Model Y and the Ford. The Hyundai and the Kia kind of have front trunks, and I'll show you very quickly what I mean by this. Whereas the Volkswagen and the Nissan do not have front trunks, so the front of the car is basically like a gas car. It's just a hood with a bunch of crap underneath, and you can't really put anything in there. This is what the Hyundai and Kia front trunks look like. It's like a freaking door within a door, which is weird, but it is kind of usable. You can put a few bags of groceries in there, but it's very small, especially if you compare it to, say, Model Y. It's way deeper, it's way wider. It's just significantly larger than Hyundai or Kia's offerings, and the Mach-E looks extremely similar to this. And that's why I wanted to put that asterisk there, just to give you a heads up that even though they do have a front trunk, it's not really comparable to what you should get really from an electric vehicle, which is that entire front space, as much of it available to you because there's no engine. Now, for max charge rate, which is basically how fast or how much power your car can pull from a charging station, the Tesla Model Y, the Volkswagen both have 170 kilowatts. The Ford has 150, and then the Nissan Ariya has 130, which is worst in class, and the Hyundai and the Kia have 350, which is by far best in class. However, I really want to highlight this because, and that's why I put an asterisk there, because the amount of chargers available in the US that are 350 kilowatt capable are super few and far between. So if you're somebody who wants to do road trips and really wants to depend on 350 kilowatt power, right now the US just does not have really any of them. They're super, super hard to find. However, the cool thing about all these cars is that eventually, likely by the beginning of 2025, some of these automakers already announced this, all these cars should have access to the Tesla supercharger network, which maxes out about half the time at 250 kilowatts, which is more than plenty for people that want to do road trips. And it's not just going to be a Tesla thing anymore. It should be an everybody thing by 2025. The bigger thing about charging is the availability is so much more important than really how much power you can pull. But I just want to highlight that in case you are seriously considering that as a variable. Now let's move on to cargo, which is how much stuff you can put in an EV. In this case, the Tesla Model Y has the best cargo at 76 cubic feet, followed by the Volkswagen ID4 at 64, Ford Mustang Mach-E, I can't say that word for some reason, 65, Hyundai at 60, Nissan at 60, and the worst in class in this case is Kia, which is 50. But in Kia's defense, the EV6 tends to be a little bit more sporty than the other models, at least they try to be, and that's why they're giving up some of that room. But still, 50 cubic feet is pretty damn good for an SUV. However, the reason why the Model Y wins so much in this case is because they have an entire separate section under the floor of the trunk. There's actually another one behind this as well, which is a lot shallower, but it exists, where you can just put a freaking cooler in there. And this one, I personally have a Model Y, and this one has come super, super helpful in just carrying stuff and road tripping. Now let's go ahead and talk about the MSRP for each one of these vehicles. Really important to note here, again, is that this includes the federal EV tax credit for cars that qualify up to $7,500. And you got to make sure you qualify as well with your income requirements from the IRS. The IRS has an entire website about this. I'll put a link to that in the description below as well, in case you want to get familiar. So that's one variable. And the other one is for non-Teslas, because Tesla doesn't have a dealership network. None of these prices include fees, deliveries, or any markups that a dealership could put on a car that could significantly increase the price of a car. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at these prices. Including the EV tax credit, the Tesla Model Y comes in at $36,490. The Volkswagen ID4, best in class in this case, $31,495. Freaking really great price for this vehicle. Ford at $39,200. Hyundai at $41,400. Hyundai has no access to the EV federal tax credit, neither does Kia or Nissan. Ford has half the access at $3,750, and then Volkswagen and Tesla have full access at $7,500. And that's how the pricing shakes shakes out for each one of these. And last but not least, when it comes to these variables, the dollars per mile, which is a calculation of how many miles of range you get per dollar you spend, or the other way of thinking about it is how much you have to spend per mile of range, which is how this number is shown on this chart. The Tesla Model Y in this case has the best dollar per mile, again, including that federal EV tax credit of about $140 per mile you purchase. Volkswagen, you'll have to spend about $151 per mile of range you get. Ford, $157, Hyundai, $188, Kia, $184, and Nissan at $200, which unfortunately is worst in class for the Nissan. So I'll leave this up for a couple more seconds in case you want to sort of take this in. You're free to pause as well. But here's the full chart. But what's really cool about this too is that we can come up with a scoring system to rank these cars and see where they place. So let's go ahead and do that just for fun. Not scientific. I just like numbers. So we're going to do a little bit of a number exercise. For any variables where the automaker is best in class, I gave them a score of 3. If you're just sort of middle of the ground, you're not worst in class, you just get 1 to try and sort of spread the love a little bit across every model. And then if you're worst in class, you get 0 points. And this is really in hopes to try and figure out, depending on what you're looking for, we can sort of rank these models. And then if you're just looking for your best overall, then you can add all these numbers up for each car. And then you can figure out, okay, this car seems to be, at least semi-scientifically, the best one given these variables, as long as these variables are important to you. And so if you add these up, the Tesla Model Y has a score of 15, the Ford Mustang Mach-E an 11, Hyundai 9, Kia 8, Volkswagen 6, and Nissan 3, which based on our very semi-scientific, super not official ranking, but kind of makes sense-ish, Tesla comes across as the winner of this competition. And of course, this really shouldn't be a surprise for those that follow the EV market closely. Tesla has the best-selling EV by far in the US and the best-selling car period globally in 2023 thus far. And so it seems like these numbers line up with how Tesla is performing in these head-to-heads, especially at these lower pricing. Now, the one huge variable that I've left out, because who knows when this is going to come officially, but the Tesla car, the Model Y, is really the only one that is outfitted with the hardware where Tesla hopes to turn on self-driving capability for, where you don't have to pay attention and the car takes you around. We're still not 100% sure when that's coming. They do have a really good driver assistance feature where it will take you around the town, especially on highways. It's phenomenal. I personally use it all the time and I love it, but it's not officially there where you can take your hands off the wheel and stop paying attention. So if that's an important thing for you, just keep that in mind. It's not here yet, but it could be here very soon. Just want to throw that out there in case you are curious about that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and end the video. If you want to support the channel, just head to the description. I have links there and we'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.